Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Moods, Minds, and Manifestations podcast, featuring real people, real experiences, and real talk. And I'm your host, Mocha. So let's get into it. So my guest today is my long-lost cousin, Bron Allen, and we've just recently reconnected after decades, about 40 years of not being in contact. And it was really great to catch up with him and to see what's going on in his life and to tell him what's going on in my life. And he did say to me that he has a son, but he was not as much a part of his son's life growing up as he would have liked to have been. A while back, I did a podcast on the impact of absentee parenting. So I thought it would be interesting to have a talk with him to see from his perspective as a dad what that experience was like to not be a part of his son's life and what led to that situation. So Bron, could you tell our listeners a little bit about yourself, where you live, what you do?
All right. Born 48 years old, 49 this year. I live in Toronto, Canada. I work at one of our bigger retailers in Canada. Live in Canada now for like 14 years. And prior to that, it was Jamaica for like 4 or 5 years. And before that, it was South Florida for like 16 years. And before that, most of my life was growing up in Jamaica, so.
And just for context for our listeners, you grew up with your mom and your dad in the home, and you had a good relationship with your dad up until he passed.
Yes.
And I remember you as that sweet little kid, and regardless of how much time has passed, you still are that sweet kid to me.
Yeah.
So let's dive into how that whole situation came about. You can just explain better on your end how everything transpired with your marriage and, your son and not being a part of his life. So you can take it away.
When it comes down to choices you make in your life, we all make choices sometimes. To look back in retrospect and say, boy, if we could all go back and change it. And I think that's one of my things in life. But you know what? There's nothing you can do. We don't have a magic ball or a time machine to go back and say, with the things over. We don't have that luxury. So, but looking back, sometimes I feel my choice even with my first wife was like, it wasn't the right decision, but like I said, we can't look more that more. I think you go back down to that, because if I had somebody more along the lines of who I'm with now, as the mother of my child, I don't think we would be the situation we're talking about now. Because I think it has a lot to do with how she is and her attitude. Don't get me wrong, I don't like to, people always say there's two sides to a story. So sometimes some people want to paint their side the prettiest and make it seem like it's all the other person's fault. It was both of our faults. We all don't go through life and don't bear some of the responsibilities of some of the issues and problems we face in our lives. It's just, and you blame it all on one person.
Yeah, we all are guilty of that. But how old were you when you got married? And, what was your circumstances like? And in a nutshell, what was the marriage like? You knew each other for many years.
First serious girlfriend from teenage years, from like 15, 16. So, I'm thinking like, oh man, this is my love of my life at this young age.
So then she migrated overseas.
She migrated, right. And then I left and I went to New York. And then we reconnected back like probably 2-3 years after that. Yeah, she reached out to me. She came to New York and visited, and we reconnected,
And that it was after that you got married.
yes.
So you made a life together in the States.
We made a life together, yeah, in Miami.
And then your son came along in Miami.
Yes, he was born in Miami, exactly.
Okay. So you were married for how long? Living together for how long?
Married for like 8 years.
Okay.
Yeah, living together for that same amount of time.
And how soon did you have your son after that marriage?
I think he came like the first or second year.
Okay. And then for whatever reasons, you two drifted apart.
That's the thing. I think I got married way too young. We got married, I think it was around 1920.
Wow, really young.
Yeah, really young. And we started trying to have a family right away, and the marriage broke down. And it's more in the sense that when I moved to Florida with her and lived with her, she had like most of the things set up. She was the one set up and everything, and I was just kind of like restarting. The marriage deteriorated, just went down the road, and just reached a point where, I had to leave. It's like the house was in her name, so, and I wasn't going to make a big deal. I'm still young. I'm still learning all this, you know what I'm saying? So I left.
So she was already established, and then you moved into her world, would you say?
Yes.
Was that always that dynamic that she was the one in control of things, or was that just on paper, or?
Exactly. That was the dynamic. And I learned so much from that, because it's like, it was more like she and her family was kind of like, they kind of like take charge and want stuff done their way. And I'm young, and I'm kind of learn a lot from that, because I during that period of time, I think I was more doing stuff to make everybody else happy without making myself happy.
Right. You just fell in line.
Yes, exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So then once the marriage deteriorated, you decided we're going to divorce, or was there a long period of separation, or how did that work out?
I just got out. It reached the point where I just left, and my brother was in the same era, and he was like, you know what, come live with me.
Right.
And so it was during this period of time, it's like that transitional period was very hard, because it was like, you're starting over again.
Right.
Juggling to reestablish myself, I get myself back on my feet.
How old were you at this point?
This is probably 25-ish or so.
Okay.
Something like that.
In the marriage itself, what was it like as your role as dad, especially with younger kids? Moms usually are more, so to speak, in charge, or whatever, however you want to call it. But did you feel that you had an equal footing as a parent?
No, I think I did.
Okay. So when you moved out, was there some arrangement between the two of you, or through the court system, as far as like visitations with your son and all of that?
We didn't do the court system. And that's the thing, she was more like very domineering, like she wanted stuff done her way all the time, and how she wanted and when she wanted, and this has to be done, and that led to a lot of arguments and fights and stuff like that. He's caught in between, so I tried my best even during the situation. I was trying to be there financially and fine still,
Right. So the court wasn't involved. So was it more or less whatever she asked you to do, you did as far as that, or you just did what you felt as his dad you needed to do? You just did that?
Both. But at the same time, sometimes when I felt what I want to do is not what she felt sometimes. So most of the time was like knocking heads and fighting.
And were you able to see him whenever you wanted?
I see him not all the times when I wanted, but I saw him. He come spend time with me. I wouldn't even come over. I didn't make it an issue for him. I know me and his mom wasn't on the same page, but I'd never been the type who was gonna like talk bad about his mom in front of him. I'm like, sit the phone there. If you want to talk to your mom, call her.
Right.
But on her end, it wasn't the same.
It wasn't reciprocated. And from your point of view, you don't feel that she made the attempt to establish or have him maintain a good relationship with you?
No, I know, and it's been like that ever since.
How old is he now?
He's grown. He's 26, 27.
Well, you were still dad and you still had a relationship with him, but you were more sort of in their world, in mom and her family's world. So you just, I guess, did the best you could.
Yes, yes.
Knowing you by nature, you're more, mild mannered and not into confrontations. I totally get it. So as he grew older, growing up, would you say the contact stayed the same or did it diminish or?
It diminished. It diminished. After the breakup, when I moved in with my brother at my brother's place, I met my current wife then, so that played an issue.
How so?
Because she's of a different race and culture, and I think my ex made it a point to say something like about her being white or something like that, and I'm like thinking, what does that have to do with it? But I didn't get anywhere with her, but she kind of made that played a part in it and said stuff to like, I think she said stuff in front of my son about it. You know what she didn't like? When he would come over, my current wife, but my then girlfriend, because she was great with kids. She's one of those people, like, although she doesn't have kids of her own, she's great with kids. She know how to raise kids. She know how to manage them behavior-wise growing up, what they should do, what they shouldn't do, and she was great to that. And I don't think my ex really liked that. I think she was jealous of the way she was. She made it an issue to make, like, create problems. They just love conflict and problems and arguments. And
what was the relationship like initially or, as time went on with your son and your new girlfriend?
It was fine. It was fine. They had a great relationship. Because, she took to him and they would come over, and at the time he was having issues in school and she played a major role in helping turn it around. He would come over and he loved to play his video games. Right, and she said to me, there's so much video games, but she wouldn't do it to the point where she was telling me what she's like, more like suggesting. She's like, make him cut down on the video games, because he's coming over to see me, and I don't want to be bad dad. So when he come over to me and he want to play video games and whatever, I'm like, okay, play your video games. I don't want him to come up to me and like, and I'm being a stern one and like, oh well, you do this, you have to do homework, you have to do that. But no, he was having issues, and she was saying, make him cut down on the video games. Let's get him some books and let's do some work with him. And we did that for a couple, and it paid off. But because he had that structure, when he come over to us, when he would go back over to his mom, where he had the freedom, he would complain. I said to her, hey, he's a kid, and kids do this.
Right.
He would complain. I said, they let me do a lot of work, homework and stuff like that. And then she would make it a big of so, him complaining, so I'm making him do too much work. We're like, really? He's a kid, of course he's gonna say that.
Because the fun factor is not as great. So yeah, that's normal for him to complain.
And the work we did, he improved in school. But she didn't see that way. She made a big issue of it. Where it broke down from then is we made a decision to leave the States and go back to Jamaica. And my current wife, then girlfriend, and I think from then, because I've made the distance now between me and him, I think it started from there when I left Florida.
Yeah, that created a physical and distance otherwise.
Exactly.
But did being close to him not play a role in you making a decision to leave? Because obviously you were being in another country would create a big distance.
It did, but I just felt it was time for a change. Being there, I think it was after me and I was there, and the whole thing with the marriage and the breakup and all of this kind of stuff, I felt that I needed a change. I needed to start new.
So you needed a reset.
Yeah. I would decide to move to Jamaica. Let's go to Jamaica and see what it's like, or just go for a reset,
Right. So now, was your son able to come there and visit you, or did you come and visit him, or how did you foster that relationship?
I know it's probably where it's really make it cause that disconnect, because none of that what you just mentioned happened. We didn't see each other as much. We didn't even talk as much during this period of time. And his mom didn't make it easy for him to call me and me to see him and whatnot, so...
So visits were minimal and phone calls were minimal. Yeah, that's tough. That's tough because I mean, I know as a child that has had one parent live overseas and with minimal contact, when I finally reconnected, that's my mom, when I finally reconnected with her, she was a virtual stranger. I knew it was my mother, and I think I even had a hard time calling her mom because I had not grown up with her, not really, had a steady relationship, even calling her mom. Well, the one main time that I finally saw her, I think I was a teenager, 16, and it was so very awkward. And that period of time was very awkward getting to know her. And, her whole lifestyle was just, very different from what I had grown up with. So I can totally get on your son's end how, that absence could have impacted him. And I can also, as a parent, understand when you're co parenting with someone that's not the easiest to get along with, it also creates a lot of, unnecessary hassles and drama and, makes the situation very, very tense.
Yeah.
So then, at what point did you reconnect with your son? Like, how old was he? And tell a little bit about those circumstances when you reconnected with him again.
We ended up leaving Jamaica after like 4 years. We had gotten married down there, and my now wife being Canadian, which, she filed, and we ended up coming to Canada. But still distance, between me and him, and even though, the calls, and it wasn't reciprocated. It's like you try to call him, you try to, and he's like, didn't reach out back or didn't feel like talking and stuff like that.
And at this point, is he still a minor or was he over 18?
No, he was probably still a minor. Probably this time is around what, 8, 9, 10.
Okay.
That year.
So after you moved to Canada, you still had minimal contact. So there were no visits, no visits during holidays or summer school breaks.
Nothing like that. The only time I seen him just during the time when my father passed away and we went down to Jamaica for the funeral. We reconnected then. Then again, like even being around, because his mom was there for my dad's funeral, because she knew my dad. He had stayed with us for a period of time too. When he was sick, he had gotten sick and he came back to the States and was amongst me and my brother and, the family on her side too. So she and my son was there for the funeral. We didn't really need to talk to each other, but you can sense the tension between us.
And I'm sure your son picked up on it when you weren't around each other. And I'm sure that was awkward for him to have you both in the same space at the same time. I'm sure that was a novelty in itself, an awkward novelty. So,
yeah.
So you said he's about 26 now. So what's your relationship with him like after? I'm sure you said you've tried to reach out to him, make calls, maybe even try to have visits with him. But what's the relationship with him like today?
Nothing where I would like it to be. I mean, I had a great talk with him like over a month ago, and I just kept the conversation like I didn't talk about his mother. I didn't go in divulging that part. I just kept the conversation like what you up to, what you doing, Tell him like I'm still think about you. Don't feel like because we have talk and see each other. I let him know that I still love him and I still think about him all the time.
And it's good that he hears that directly from you, minus his mom or the influence of her or her family. And I think it's good that you're still putting the effort in, and please don't stop with that. I know for me personally, I reconnected with my mom as an adult and we have quite a good relationship now. No relationship is perfect. I find that I hardly ever, rarely, even think about, my childhood and all of that. We've just sort of established a relationship as adults, and I deal with her as she is now, and she deals with me how I am now as an adult. So I think it's very important on your end, especially because you've missed out on so much. On your end, just keep doing what you're doing, and he has a choice to either reciprocate or not,
You're right about that. I have to keep trying on mine. I can't just give up and so you know what, it's past, it's gone. at least I think I have to keep trying. I had a friend like years ago told me, she's very smart and stuff, and she said to me, like, she was relating a story about, I think it was not King Cole, one of those actors or something. I think he had a strained relationship with his daughters. And she said the one thing that the daughters realized or understood when they grew up, because he kept calling, he kept trying to be present. She mentioned that to me. I'm like, oh. And like, no, you're saying that, keep it going. And like, I think I have to, whatever it leads to, who knows, but at least I have to keep trying.
If you keep making the calls to him, yes, that shows him that you are still interested and still invested, but also for you, you're also just displaying who you are as a dad, even though, you missed out on so much. But the fact that, even, with all the odds stacked against you at this point, you're still making the effort with little or no reciprocation. That just is more of a reflection of you as a person and as a father. So definitely keep doing it.
He's still around, like my brother and his family and stuff like that. And I would say to them, like, you talk to him, you spoke to him, and he's like, yeah, but to me, it look like they just kind of like isolate themselves from certain parts of the family. I think that's a lot more on her doing,
Right.
And she just cannot mold him in that way. I would have hoped that, when he got to this stage in his life where it was like, he kind of make more
independent decisions, you mean?
Exactly. But I think he kind of takes my mannerisms and stuff where he kind of like
he does things to get along and not rock the boat. Yes. And
exactly. You hit the nail on the head right here.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. I can see that. I mean, definitely. And it's kind of almost like history repeating itself, because then he's having to, if mom is a strong, domineering personality, then that will rub off on him as well. So we can only hope that as he gets older and gets a partner of his own, that it's somebody who is, nurturing, not domineering, because then he'll be already conditioned possibly to just be subservient in that regard. But
I hope that finds too.
Yeah.
I hope that finds.
None of us as parents know the perfect way to raise kids. We can only do the best we can. And you did the best with the situation, who you are, your circumstances, all of that. You did the best you could, and you're continuing to do that. So that in itself is commendable, because it's, I'm sure, awkward when somebody's not really reciprocating. So, you just, all you can do is just keep going.
We all know, like, there's no perfect blueprint in anybody's lives. We all get shown, just there's a wrench that always get shown in our machinery. Although we would like to think that we can determine how our lives are going to turn out, a lot of times we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen to take us where we're at in our lives now. So.
And another thing too, I think it says a lot about you and your personality too, because imagine had you been an alpha male and just, the typical male that flexes and wants to be in control. Imagine how much more contentious that life would have been for you, for her, for your son. The fact that you are more of a passive person, I think, may have saved all of you a lot of stress, because it's so typical for when marriages break down, family life breaks down, that, both people are hurt, and, they say hurt people. And while some might look at it as, oh, you were an absentee dad, there's absentee for various reasons. I did a podcast on that before about absentee parents, and it can range from anything to death, or the person is just not emotionally invested, or as in your situation, it was just not a good environment for you even to maintain. So there are just so many layers and nuances to absentee parents.
Of course, it let me learn a lot quickly that you can't live your life to please everybody. Like, that's what I was doing in the beginning of my whole marriage and a relationship with my first wife. I was doing this pleasing everybody, pleasing the family, and I learned after a couple of years, like, I can't keep doing it because I wasn't happy.
Yeah,
Be happy
yeah,
pleasing everybody else without
right.
pleasing yourself first.
It's not
You know, you
sustainable,
know,
not sustainable. And also you sort of lose your identity.
you lose your identity. Exactly.
And the fact that you got together so young, that was probably before you found out who your identity was. You're still trying to find yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad we were able to have this honest talk, and I'm sure it, sheds a lot of light on all the different circumstances out there, the different family dynamics, and just how, life rolls. You just don't know sometimes how things are going to turn out, and all you can do is the best you can do, right?
That's all you can do. That's all you can do. I'm always the type like think like, if you can talk and relay these type of stories, like if it can without the end to help the next person, even one person helps, I feel good about that.
That's why I do these podcasts. That's the whole idea, because we're all human, and everybody gets judged, and often by people who have never walked in our shoes. So that's how it is. So I am glad we had this talk today, and I hope we can get into some more conversations, because I think you have a really good perspective on a lot of things, and it's just nice to hear a balanced, non misogynistic male perspective on on certain things. It's just really refreshing to talk to you here on this platform. It's good, because I'm sure a lot of men, especially ones that are quieter souls, more sweet souls as you are, often don't have a voice, I find.
Right. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and come in a safe space and just talk freely.
Yes.
Talk comfortably.
Yes. Thank you for taking the time to do it.
No problem. No problem. Awesome. It was great talking to you too. Beautiful.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe to hear upcoming podcasts. And please share with family and friends. Thanks for listening.